都有。而且它这个也很有意思哈，本身也是一个扇
面
面
的，
扇面就是他就画了那个广州当初是最大的贸易中心
对，
就是那个地方的那种风景，他画的，真的很不容易。
他们这还有那最大概是中间烧的，它的原点是烧那个檀香的，对。
哦，他们家是怎么开始？
然后他的母亲的父亲是在美国一直是从政，他的祖父是外祖父头一个到中国西藏，那个时候他们抗议西藏，所以他带了14个国会议员到西藏去。然后他们。
这些都是当时来的一些精美的瓷器，还有美国的国徽、美国鹰。这是早年来到美国的中国瓷器，这是由迪崔克家族所收藏的。来看看这个大碗。这大碗上面还有美国的这个国旗呢，是早年这制造的，最早运到美国的中国瓷器。这就是瓷器上的标志，美国的国旗。我们再看看，这是他们的收藏品，也是早年运到美国来的中国瓷器，当时是一套又一套。OK， 这些都是来自他们家族所收藏的瓷器。这就是到中国的快船，接着开的这条船到中国去，从广州把瓷器运到纽约。江 Green 特别谈到这条船。这是一位美国画家画的中国的一位官员的像，这是最早的一张清朝末年画的这个当时的官员的
像。The voyage of that first ship, which was the Empress of China, 1784, left New York, and then, had all these stops along the way to get fresh water and food, but then came around the Horn and then to Canton. So this is really for kids to kind of be able to visualize, what that was and how far they're traveling. And the ship was small. It was 104 feet long, so it's, not a big ship.
Good seeing you. Thank you for
inviting you.
Oh no, this is great fun. I'm so glad you can help.
Chinese guy, he put in there.
Yeah, exactly. That's from our home. Yeah.
The original.
Yeah.
Continue.
Okay. So then in this case, these are all pieces that just show the American eagle. And so we wanted to do a display that shows the eagle because that was a very popular thing to have the eagle. And here it's clasping the arrows and then also the olive branch.
Right.
And the head turns to the olive branch, preferring peace to war is the symbolism.
Who's the chief? That's picture.
Yeah, so this gentleman is a guy named Captain Benjamin Smith from Boston. And he was an early China trader.
Yeah.
And it was painted by a Chinese artist whose name was Spoilum, the Pidgin English name. And he did a number of portraits early on. This one's from around 1790, but a nice early portrait of an American.
这是他的本吗？
The star of the show. It's really probably the greatest piece here.
I see.
And so this inside the bowl is a depiction of the first American ship to go to China. It left in 1784. It's the Empress of China. And it was a ship that a number of American investors came together and they said, we need to trade with China. And so they raised the money to get the ship. They hired a captain and they left from New York Harbor in 1784. This bowl was probably made in 1790. And the first thinking was that it came back in 1785 with the ship. And then they realized that if you look at the down there's a fence. And the fence was actually built in 1787. So they realized, well, it's not from 1785 because that fence along the Pearl River that you see here, was 1787. So the thinking is that it's about 1790, but it's still really early. And you can see all the different trading offices, that Denmark, there's the United States, England, they're all there. Sweden, Austro-Hungarian Empire. But the new ones there are the Americans. And it's kind of interesting that they're right next to the British, even though they just fought this war together, but they still set up offices, right next to each other. And the Chinese apparently really preferred to deal with the Americans because with the British, it was all the East India Company. And with the Americans, it was individuals. It was people who said, we're going to get the money to get a ship. We're going to go over. And so, it was really people dealing with people, not the Chinese dealing with a company kind of thing.
Richard, I like you said we need to have a treating with China. The guy said they need a treating with China.
Yeah, a treaty?
Treating.
Oh, trading. Yeah, it was so important.
We need it now.
I know. It was so important. But I think that's the thing, that beginning with the trade with China and those, it was really a lot of...
Waterfront. It's in Canton, yes.
Yeah, in Canton, which is present-day Guangzhou, I guess. Yeah, I'd love to go and try to see these, if any of this still exists like it was. But it's really amazing. And here you can see, this is another scene of that. And this is just a blow-up of this little tiny painting that was done on brass. So it's on metal. But here you can see there's, again, the American and these different trading. And they each had their office inside these.
We call these areas as
Shamian.
So it's still there.
Oh, really? I'd love to try to see that. That's fascinating. But I love in here you have all these different Chinese boats. There's one English boat, but it's kind of wonderful, these depictions. And then here, this is just different pieces of the service, but one of the fascinating ones is this one that's not in great shape. But this one was the captain of that first American ship. He had a whole set of dishes made, and that's one of his. This one's kind of fun. It's a Pennsylvania family, and it's called the Quaker Farmer. And so it's a cow and a farmer. The cow looks much more like a kind of Asian ox than an American cow.
We have 5 cow, picture, photo.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it's representing the top.
Of different things, but it was a sample, so you could see, well, maybe I want this, no, I like this, and so it was a sample piece, and then you'd order the kind of border that you like, and you'd choose the thing to have in the center, you know, so it was a way to look. Hi. Oh, good. Oh, nice to meet you. Okay. Yeah, I think in a little while there's going to be a little talk. But I'm sort of giving a little tour if you want to be a part of it. So this is a Hong merchant, and so this was one of the people who dealt with the Americans. We don't know who he was, but he was young, and this badge that he wears would denote his rank. His hat helps to denote the rank. And the thing is, what's amazing about this, painted by a Chinese artist, it's in the original fruitwood frame, Chinese frame. But what's great about this is that it was brought back by an American and displayed in their home. And so they're trying to show their friends and family, this is the guy that I deal with in China. And so it's kind of a wonderful friendship piece, right? You know, it's beautiful. It's such a warm depiction. And I just love that because it's the meeting of these two cultures, these two people.
This is the first part. This young man is
He's a merchant. And so he was assigned to the Americans.
to deal with the.
Exactly, to be there, you know, to help.
It's very rare to have a smile like that. It's very rare to have someone that young.
But you know he was tough though. He had to be pretty tough.
Reflect his rank. His ranking.
Yes. And he has long fingernails, meaning he does not work.
That's a good point. That long thumbnail. You're right. Yeah. But see, you think that the bird helps?
Birds, yeah, helps. Beast is for you are like a martial officials.
Hi, I'm Richard. Nice to meet you. Hi.
Carol.
Nice to meet you, Carol. Richard Dietrich.
So the immigration of that time period only allowed academics, businessmen, and diplomats into this country.
Well, this guy never came to the country, but his portrait did. And so he was somebody who worked with Americans in China. And an American merchant brought back the portrait to put in his home. And so it's kind of, I love that it's this East meeting West, you know, this American wanting the portrait of the person he works with in China. And painted by a Chinese artist. Memorials, the things in the center, different families ordering these pieces. But then this is an interesting thing. This is that Whampoa. It's down the Pearl River. And it was where the big ships came, and they couldn't go up the river. So they all had to anchor there. All the crew slept on the ships. And then smaller Chinese ships would come down and carry the foreign traders up to Canton to live. And they'd also carry all the goods. So the things that the Americans were bringing, and those things were like, animal hides, beaver pelts, furs, things like that, wood, lead, ginseng, and then later opium, of course, was part of the trade. And so, that has to be a part of the story. And then what they were taking back down the river, about 10 miles down the river, they'd load up with porcelain like this, tea, of course, different Chinese goods, cloth, silks, other fine goods. And then here is an interesting thing in this portrait, in this painting, is this cemetery. And so it almost looks like you have three people there, and it's sort of hard to make out, but those are all gravestones. And the thing is, it was hot. People living on the ship got diseases, and so there were a lot of people who died. And so that was called the foreign cemetery, and it was the British, American, French, all these, foreign traders who ended up dying there. It must be. I don't know. I'd love to go visit, because all this is no longer, this is all developed now. So there's no, wide open spaces there. That's very, very close to Guangzhou down the river now. And then these paintings are interesting too, because these show the porcelain production. And so there, people, and you'd actually have a series of many of these. And so this is just one, but you'd have, 11 or so paintings showing the different stages of production. Throwing the clay, first making the clay, and then throwing it, firing it, even packing it. There's some wonderful things where they even have like 20 small paintings of all the stages of porcelain, and then they'd also make all the stages of tea production and the different, things that would come over. But part of the reason for doing these was that the Americans and other Europeans really liked to have them as sort of souvenirs. But then it was also a way, if you were dealing in porcelain, to show people, well, this is what you're buying, and this is where it comes from. This is how it's made. So these are kind of early. These ones were done in the 1840s later. And, interesting stylistically, a little different, but just interesting to look at. Thank you. Thank you. But I really, I'd love to see, we don't have a next stop planned yet, but the hope is to do, 3 or 4 stops with this somewhere else. We're looking, there's a couple great museums in San Francisco that we're looking at. And then, if anybody has any suggestions, we're all ears.
It will be here for a year.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, no, not a year. Actually, until probably the end of November. Yeah, so about 6 months. But I would love for, I'd love for it to go to China, actually. It would be an amazing...
Then you should talk to her.
Yeah, we would...
But Joe, they see my tourists, But
Yeah.
the collection is much bigger, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think
and...
if it goes to China, it needs to be larger.
Yeah, no, it could be a much bigger show. I mean, we have a lot more pieces. We kind of fit this to what the Chinese American Museum could do, and the Chinese American Museum is so amazing, and we're so happy for this to be this show here. But it could easily be bigger,
But what about the Chinese American Museum in New York?
That's an idea too. I think that's a really good point.
And there's a Chicago.
Yep.
There's a, at least the Chinese American Museum in the U.S. They can have a traveling tour.
There's a Chinese American who is friends with the Chinese American Museum, a man named Jay Su, who's head of the Asian American Museum or the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. And he has some interest, and I'd love to, that would be a great destination for it.
But the San Francisco Museum, all you need is a underwriter.
Yeah.
They will expect that.
That's a good point. I think that's a really good point. So I don't know where it goes next, but China would be amazing. Because I think that these stories of America meeting China and China meeting America, they're important right now, right? I mean, for people to understand that there's a long history, there's a history of friendship, it's a complicated story, but it would be important.
The other thing is somebody could make this into lesson plan for school. Because like 1882 Foundation, they have people to do the Chinese Exclusion Act incorporating into the lesson plan. So maybe talk to them to see if.
But you also have a video. Penny sent me a video.
Oh, you have a video?
Is it a video of this?
No. I mean, there was. Who was it? Microsoft came. Oh, a video, but I think of the museum.
But I thought it was a video she sent me. Maybe it was not a video.
But it may have been. just a recording as someone walked around, because Jenny, I think it was Microsoft came and filmed the whole museum, which was amazing, and so this was part of that, which we're thrilled that it was filmed.
I think the idea, their primary project are videos.
Oh, that's great.
I think get on the YouTube, just to get the message out.
Yeah.
DJ, tell us when your foundation started to collect those arts from China.
That's part of the speech.
Yeah.
When?
So it was really, it's interesting. It was my father who started to collect.
Yeah.
And he started with books and manuscripts.
Right.
And then he had such an interest in George Washington.
Right.
And it was those first two pieces there in that case that he said, I love this. This is both George Washington and something beautiful.
Right.
And that's how it started.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, David.
Did they do any jokes?
Jokes?
Well,
That's a good question.
well,
There were some funny stories where, for instance, an English family really, really wanted to have a full dinner service. And so they had a plan, they put together, they did a detailed drawing, they sent it over, and it came back with the wrong colors. And they said, oh, no, and it was like 2 years later, whatever. And so they did another one where they did the exact same plan, and then they drew blue and an arrow, yellow, and they really were detailed. This is what the colors should be. So it came back with blue, arrow, yellow, all with the labels. And why wouldn't it? Like how would they have known? And so those actually are so prized by collectors. I mean, it was a heartbreak for the family, but now people all want those.
yeah, I mean, at a certain point, like even the Native American tribes do, generate pottery for the tourist trade.
Yeah.
So China's the same thing in terms of I imagine China like they were oriented to the Europeans and Americans who come to buy this stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would be fascinating to get inside more of that, details of how that worked. Those people who were, and whether there was any little jokes or whether they were, how they were doing that. So
they knew it was going to people who didn't read Chinese. Or
yeah.
Notice.
Hi, great to see you.
Hey, how are you?
Great to see you.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
Friend is Louise Ross.
Yes.
And so I've always heard about you from Louise, and that I said I was coming here with Leah, and she said, "Oh, I wasn't invited." And you can't keep her. She's gone to Long Island to see her sister.
Oh,
we
yeah, that would have been great. I
shouldn't have said that, but it's just that. Yeah, I've just heard
No,
about you
I
for a
should
long
have.
time.
We really should have invited her. I really wish we had.
Yeah, small world though.
I know. No, I love her. She's amazing.
Yeah.
And her husband was my godfather,
Right.
Robin, who I adored.
Did you study?
To the museum this evening to celebrate the China from China porcelain and stories from early American trade exhibit. We are so grateful to have this unique exhibition as loaned to us by the Dietrich American Foundation. And it's one of those really unusual happenstance that enabled us to have this show this exhibit here in Washington, because these items, since they have been owned by the Dietrich American Foundation, have never been outside of Philadelphia. So the county itself is very fortunate that Washington, D.C. is the first place that these items are being shown. The foundation the owners are Richard and Ginger Dietrich, and their curator, Debbie Reebok, she's here somewhere. They have been so wonderful in helping set this exhibit up, and we cannot be more grateful to them. But for Camp DC's point of view, since our opening last October, we really have been extremely fortunate in having a number of very unique and extremely interesting and, well, I like to say, well done exhibits. The Dorothy Lee retrospective of her art as a Chinese American artist, and the Golden Threads, Chinese Opera in America, and these embroidery items. We are a small museum, but what's working for us is that we are nimble, and when an opportunity comes along, we grab it, we run with it, and we make it happen, or exhibit happen. There are a few people in the room that I'd like to acknowledge at this time, and the first is Madame Li Mian from the Chinese Embassy. Madame Lin, thank you so much for coming this evening. And also Brian Hart, Director of the Chinese Economic and Trade Office. Director Ha, oh please. Thank you so much for coming. And Brian just told me that he'll be going back to Hong Kong after 3.5 years in Washington. I mean, just like in the blink of an eye. So we hope you'll come back to Washington to visit and come visit our museum anytime. Let me know. Also, I want to acknowledge Ambassador Julia Chang Block. Julia is our first honorary board member of the museum, and she has brought us around the task. Thank you, Julia, for all your support. Acknowledged CAMDC's executive board members.
I just wanted to welcome everybody as well. David, thank you for your words. And, you know, Ginger, my wife right there, we both love this museum. And I think it's just a testament to a vision. And Jenny, for you to have this vision of the need for a Chinese American museum in DC. And I think that, you know, it's interesting because as this exhibit that I hope everyone's going to really get a chance to see, and I'm happy to go through and show people aspects of it and describe things. But, you know, for an opening like this, you'd normally be sort of thinking, well, this happened after 3 or 4 years of thinking about it, and here it's come to fruition. Ginger actually had this idea less than a year ago. And David said they're nimble, and that's an understatement. They're ferociously nimble, because it was less than a year ago that we thought of the idea, Ginger did. And then it was really late fall where it was like, maybe we really should do this. And then Debbie Reebok, the curator of the foundation, just jumped into high gear, but museums don't operate this way, and CAMDC does. And it was kind of up until February, March, when we were thinking, okay, these things, we still thought, can it really open on time? I don't think it can. But it did, and it was really a testament to David, and also Penny Yao, and David Uwe, and the rest of the, there's Penny in the back, and the rest of the CAMDC team, and Jenny, of course. So thank you. And you know, in terms of the exhibit, what Ginger's vision for this was to kind of tell the story of when America first met China, and also when China first met the new United States. So that first ship goes from New York Harbor in 1784, the Empress of China. I hope you explore the exhibit a little bit because that ship features prominently. But that first story is one of hope and of people-to-people, American merchants meeting their Chinese counterparts, developing friendships. There was porcelain, of course, tea. There were things that the Chinese wanted. There was American ginseng. There were animal furs. There was wood. There was lead. There was all these different resources that the Chinese wanted. Of course, opium enters the story as well. And so that, you know, everything in history is complicated, and that's certainly a part of it. And it's mentioned in this exhibit upstairs. But our real hope is that this exhibit can highlight some of those early stories. And so you see the portrait of a Chinese merchant up there. That was something that an American commissioned. They wanted that in their home. And that's a wonderful depiction of somebody who was really a friend. And then there are also portraits of Americans painted by Chinese painters. So I really hope that we can all talk and you can go up and really explore it, but I'm just thrilled that we're sharing this. And then one last thing, and I'm so thrilled that you're here, the wife of the ambassador, and thank you for being here. And our hope is really that this can actually sometime go to China. I think that would be a really fun thing, and it'd be a wonderful way to kind of highlight this journey as two nations, that we've had this history. And hopefully things like this create better understanding between two countries. So thank you. Okay, thanks to CAMDC, and really just thrilled this is happening. Thank you.